Hello and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host Eric Tait.
And I'm Bob Anthony. Good to see you, Eric.
Bob, glad to be back. It's been a while since we've been here with a new show, and I guess it's about time for us to do some analysis of what's been going on in the news. Pretty much it's all about police, Ferguson, Eric Garner.
Correct.
The dichotomy between how people of color and people who are not of color see policing in the U.S. of A.
Right, and the way the public has reacted, the way the protests have developed, and the way the media has covered. There's a lot to look at as the protests basically continue as we tape this somewhere, and probably will still be going on when this airs.
Well, we've got about 28 minutes, I guess 27 now,
Okay.
to try to cover a lot of this. Look, why don't we just jump off with taking a look at a list of these various cases that have popped up across the country.
Sure.
Just to give a background. The AP cited an ABC News report on a summary of what had gone down during the summer pertaining to cops and black men and shootings and deaths and the like.
Is this a recent recap?
This was actually a December 5th.
Okay.
So that's about, what, not quite 10 days ago. Actually more like 5 days ago.
Right.
The first one they listed was a chokehold death, which of course is right here in New York, Staten Island, the Eric Garner case.
Right.
Illegal chokehold, asthmatic person ended up dead. We can go into the background of that.
Right, but I'm sure we don't need to go into too much. Obviously, it's a well-known case.
When we go back to talk about the whole thing.
Sure.
In August 5th, there was a Walmart shooting. This was in Ohio. A young man by the name of John Crawford III. He was in a Walmart looking at potential sporting things, and one of the things he was looking at was an air rifle. Okay. There was a report that a man called in a report saying a man was waving a rifle.
Okay.
The two cops showed up. He got shot. Special grand jury decided in September that the actions of Officer Sean Williams and another Beaver Creek officer in the racially charged case were justified.
Okay.
That's a grand jury justified. The Michael Brown case in Ferguson, now known as the Hands Up, Don't Shoot, that took place on August 9th. We all know that the bulk of the triggering for the mass demonstrations began with the grand jury
case
coming in, bringing in no indictment, and I guess it was Darren Williams, who
was recently
Wilson
resigned.
Or Williams?
Wilson.
Wilson. Darren Wilson shot and killed unarmed teenager who may have been doing some petty larceny prior to that, but supposedly had run away, turned around, put his hands up.
Right, and the shooting did come from a considerable distance. That's in the coroner's report and a few other places. But go ahead.
Yeah. So he's dead.
Yes.
Right here in Brooklyn on November 20th, New York policeman was walking down a stairwell. It's called the stairwell shooting.
It was in a housing project, the Pink Houses in Brooklyn. But go ahead.
Police Commissioner William Bratton said that the victim, Akai Gurley, had been, quote, a total innocent.
Right.
When he was shot, the shooting by an Asian officer was under investigation. Brooklyn District Attorney said last Friday that the case would be presented to a grand jury.
Now that one particularly hurts because I grew up in a housing project, and I'm used to, even when I was a kid, we were used to darkened stairways because either through vandalism or lack of maintenance, the stairways were dark. So that was nothing out of the ordinary to be walking up or down a dark stairway. And apparently the only thing that happened in this case is a door opened and someone stepped into the dark stairway.
Well, the key thing is he's a rookie policeman, and
that was one problem.
With his gun in his hand.
And that was another problem.
So
there was no report of a shooting or any kind of incident that would have required a gun be taken out
So
at that moment.
in
That's
in the space of like 4 months, 4 shootings.
yes. But go ahead.
And probably for me the most egregious of all these, not that any of them are any worse, but this is a 12-year-old boy. On November 22nd, white rookie police officer Tim Lohman shot and killed a 12-year-old black boy, Tamir Rice, who had been pointing a pellet gun near a Cleveland playground. Pointing the pellet gun. This report says he was pointing the pellet gun. Doesn't say who he's pointing the pellet gun at or what. But
well, I've seen the tape. You do see the kid pointing it at passersby.
Okay.
But it wasn't like the passersby even kept walking.
Mm-hmm.
They even they realized it was a 12-year-old kid with a toy,
Yeah,
just
right.
being a little bit rude, pointing it at them. But beyond that, not much else.
According to the police, Tamir was told to raise his hands but reached into his waistband for the realistic-looking airsoft gun. So he was pointing at people, and then he put it back in his band, and then they came and supposedly told him to raise his hands, but he reached for the toy pistol. Okay.
And there's an issue there because on the video he shot within, and the police say 2 seconds. So I don't know if there was any time for any kind of warning.
There's a report that I read that indicated that within seconds of the police car pulling up, the shots were fired.
You can, and in the video you see that. It rolls right up and
So they had no time to even assess whether it was a toy gun.
Exactly.
Assess whether or not he was responding to anything.
or
they were
make
saying.
any order of that type. I'm just
These are
gauging. I'm
these
just
are
gauging by the video.
based on what
Yes,
you've seen
yes.
and basically what I've read.
Right, and I can't conclude.
Well, the shooting was captured on surveillance video, but
Yes.
that means nothing because Eric Garner's choking was captured on
Absolutely.
cell phone video. So the video means absolutely
with audio.
nothing. So there are street protests. His family has filed a lawsuit against the city, Lohman, and his partner. There's also a report that I read that this guy had been discharged from suburban police force, or actually was not hired because in trying to apply for it, he totally screwed up, was not mentally.
Was it that he wasn't hired, or was that part of an assessment while he was employed?
I believe he was applying for it, but
Okay.
I wouldn't swear
Okay.
because he was going through testing on the firearms range, and he failed that miserably, and they evaluated the fact. He may have been employed, and they realized after testing him,
It might have been an
that-
evaluation, but I read it too, and it was pretty bad. They said he wasn't ready, and he was too. I think immaturity came up.
they dismissed him from that force.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, but evidently this Cleveland police folks didn't review any of
They
that
did not get that
background,
info.
and so
Correct.
he got hired. This 12-year-old boy is dead. And then on early December, around the 2nd or so, a white police officer, the unarmed drug suspect shooting. White police officer, authorities say, mistook a pill bottle for a gun and shot and killed an unarmed black drug suspect during a struggle at a Phoenix apartment building. About 150 people, upset about the killing of this gentleman, Rumain Brisbane, marched to police headquarters. Police and prosecutors met with local civil rights leaders. Okay, so they met with the civil rights leaders. On this list, there's something about a fight over a taillight ticket. I don't know if that's that video with this guy assaulting this woman on the California side of the highway. I'm not sure what that one was about.
I think I saw that video as well.
Yeah, so that may be the
dash cam video.
fight.
Yes.
Who knows? But he was totally brutalizing this woman on the side of the highway. This wasn't even a male. This was a black female. So there is this litany of, I don't want to call them events because people have lost their lives over this craziness. So
it's brought a new focus on questions that had been raised before about these particular issues. But now that we've had so many well-reported incidents back to back to back to back, the focus is there, and for a change, the public willingness to do something is there. Whether it's enough, that's a question.
Okay, so within some of the stuff, our good resource person, Joy Elliott,
yes, excellent researcher for Media Watch for ages,
sent us some serious stuff, but there are grim statistics on race and police killings. Now, as we call what the media is saying, doing from different sources, from our resource people, from what we do online. We try to pull together stuff that's germane to what we want to talk about. And the interesting thing, this was a CNN report on December 3rd by a gentleman by the name of Eric Bradner. He's got a great first name.
Okay.
Eric Bradner.
Yes.
And basically he was analyzing the fact that even when you start to dig into statistics about these kinds of killings, shootings, he opens up his piece that he posted on December 3rd, or updated on December. Syndicated columnist Nicholas Kristof wrote the week of December 3rd that young black men are 21 times more likely to be shot and killed by police than young white men. On the other hand, Fox News Channel host Bill O'Reilly had a much different take on his show Monday night, offering that more whites are killed by police than blacks. Here's the difference in the quotes. In 2012, 123 African Americans were shot dead by police. There are currently more than 43 million blacks living in the USA, O'Reilly said. Same year, 326 whites were killed by police bullets. Those are the latest stats available. Two dramatically different statistics, and they could both be right.
Right. You can both spin them correctly.
All right. And basically it all depends on what the parameters you use, as this gentleman proceeded to do. Kristof, Times columnist, citing an analysis by ProPublica.
Now, Kristof, I mean, you and I both know who he is.
New York Times columnist.
I mean, his investigations I have a lot of respect for, because I've seen a lot of them over the years.
That's William Kristof. Nicholas Kristof, rather. Nick Kristof, as folks call him.
Yes.
But what he did was, for his piece, he went to an analysis by ProPublica. And we know ProPublica is a new online investigative platform that's got started with funding from foundations and other sources, because good investigative journalism seems to be dying in print and broadcast journalism, so they're trying to pick up the slack.
Right. I used to be a member of Investigative Reporters and Editors, and when that kicked off, that was such a welcome addition to what we find online, simply because they do an excellent job. But go ahead. You have some good stats.
Yeah, ProPublica report, their analysis was of Federal Bureau of Investigation's supplementary homicide report, and their site reported the 1,207 deadly police shootings from 2010 to 2012 captured in the federal data show that blacks aged 15 to 19 were killed at a rate of 31.17 per million, while just 1.47 per million white males in that age range died at the hands of police. Okay. So if you look at the statistics that way, narrowing the parameters for that, and going to the FBI data, you come up with vast discrepancy. What's key is that ProPublica narrowed the scope of its analysis to 15 to 19, adjusted for population differences to account for the fact that more whites live in the United States than blacks, both key differences from O'Reilly's approach. Now, you know O'Reilly's going to always skew things and pick his data, so the Fox News host, Eric Bradner continues, came from a fatal injury database maintained by, quote, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Okay.
So
that's not a police.
It's a different database, different source. Okay. A search in 2012 for deaths caused by, quote, legal intervention as a result of the use of a firearm, that is, a police shooting, a legal intervention, yields just the numbers O'Reilly cited Monday. In the 15 to 19 age range, the database shows 20 white people killed in 2012 and 14 blacks, coming from that database. Where is the data on officer-involved shootings is the question. And, of course, as you well know, there are none. Okay?
Exactly. That hasn't been.
The problem, experts say, is that the United States doesn't collect accurate statistics and verify nearly enough information to show definitive trends in police shootings.
Now, all of that is public information, of course, and probably someone like a ProPublica will do the necessary Freedom of Information requests for the different, say, major municipalities and get that data together on their own. But I know what you're saying. They don't code it. The data isn't coded so that you can specifically pull it out easily.
Here's the other flaw in that. I'm going to quote again from Eric Bradner's article. quote, there isn't a mandatory reporting.
Okay.
It's self-reporting, almost on the honor system, Sonny Holstein, a CNN legal analyst, said.
Okay.
This is a CNN guy talking
Sure.
to his own legal analyst. He goes on to say, although the FBI does have some statistics, most people know that those statistics can't even be counted upon because they are self-reported. Now, background. Every FBI shooting of anybody held in FBI custody that's been investigated by the FBI, every FBI agent ever involved in shooting anybody in their custody has always been exonerated, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that being the background,
Okay.
when you have self-reporting and the FBI database,
Right.
then I'm a little inclined to worry about those statistics. But
Okay.
Holstein continues. I think that the number of officer shootings involving young black males is actually much higher than is even self-reported.
Okay.
That's something that needs to be part of the conversation.
So even the troubling ProPublica stats could be worse had the reporting been better.
Had the FBI
Yes.
not being the base source
Okay.
for the data.
Right.
Radner quotes Jeff Alpert, a University of South Carolina criminologist, who recently told USA Today that the FBI's database can confirm police have shot and killed people, but provides few other details.
Okay.
The numbers are self-reported by individual law enforcement agencies, and not all local and state agencies participate.
Okay.
Most shootings are marked as justified homicides with little follow-up. So
Right.
that's the ground rules that they're playing with.
I
So
see.
you're probably not getting very many of. Let me put it this way: if they're doing self-reporting, and here's the quote: "There's no national database for this type of information." And that's really crazy, Alpert said. We've been trying for years, but nobody wanted to fund it, and the police departments didn't want it. They were concerned with their image and liability. They don't want to bother with it.
Okay.
And that's why you have no statistics
Right.
about how many folks get shot by cops, whether justified or not,
Right.
because the image is not going to be very good. So basically, folks, you can quote statistics and it'll say one thing depending on which side of the aisle you're on. And I'm inclined to trust Christoph and ProPublica before I'm inclined to trust Bill O'Reilly and Fox fake news.
Well, O'Reilly's stats I've never trusted. Christoph particularly does good work. I've seen his work in the past that have nothing to do with crime reporting or anything like that. The research is always complete.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of trust in what he reports. And ProPublica, of course, I go to a lot for their research.
So there was an op-ed piece. You might want to talk to our readers about it. That either Joy or Pearl Duncan sent to us. That came about a week ago, and basically, why don't you just read a segment of the title of this assessment?
Well, I had seen a piece of this earlier, but I hadn't seen the entire document. It's about white rage. That's the headline of this op-ed piece by Carol Anderson, Associate Professor of African American Studies and History at Emory University, among other positions.
This about white rage is not about not black anger at the police, but white rage against.
I mean, the full title of the piece is Ferguson isn't about black rage against cops, it's white rage against progress. That was the essence of her op-ed. And she goes into a historical context about how this
plays out historically.
Yes. And I'll try to pull out a piece of it. She places Ferguson in I'll just read this graph, and that'll explain most of it. She places Ferguson in a deep historical context, as I have yet seen perhaps appropriate for the subject matter. Let's see. As a college professor, going back to white rejection of the intent of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. She reminds us of the institution of black codes after the withdrawal of the Union Army from the South, as a result of the deal that made Rutherford Hayes president of the United States, even though Samuel Tilden had clearly won the popular vote.
That was the 1876 election that we were talking about with Leroy Baylor on our last show.
Right.
That's basically when they tried to turn the clock back. But I beg to differ with her. Those black codes didn't start then.
Okay.
We can talk about the black codes that were instituted during slavery, just because those black codes in 1876 was just a reiteration of that.
I see.
That goes to the heart of what she's
Was sort of a solidification?
Yeah, it's just revisiting in order to establish control of black folk.
Okay. And she brings up this other case in the next graph, United States versus Cruikshank. And is that something you had been familiar with?
I didn't know that one, and I knew a lot of these cases.
Yes.
Like I was telling Leroy, my high school history teacher taught us American history
pretty
via
completely.
constitutional law.
Okay.
But this case, United States versus Cruikshank, I had no idea.
Should I? Okay.
Limited the application of the Bill of Rights against the states.
Right.
Argued that the due process and equal protection clauses of the 14th Amendment applied only to actions by state governments. Thus, private citizens, anybody,
Right.
could not be prosecuted for violating the rights of freedmen. Those
Right.
are newly
Exactly.
free people. So this is in the aftermath of a riot against Republican freedmen by white Democrats during an election in an attempt to keep them from voting. So voter suppression on skin color is nothing new.
Nothing new.
All right.
That's interesting
so
by itself.
The thrust of her op-ed piece is, this is white rage against progress.
Against things
so
moving
anytime
forward.
progress is being made, you get this major pushback.
Let's go back to the way things were, I mean, to the good old days. That's a recurring theme, unfortunately, in to many of these the
interesting
incidents.
thing is a number of the things that she touches on. Every time there's progress, like Brown versus the Board of Education, there's a massive white pushback. And so basically what she's saying, after Brown, you had not only people with bricks and mobs at school doors, you had 101 members of Congress issuing the Southern Manifesto 2 years after Brown, declaring war on the Brown decision. And the governors in Virginia, Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, massive resistant movement, and created a legal doctrine called interposition that supposedly nullified any federal law or court decision which a state disagreed with.
Interesting. Was it, there was a county in Virginia, was it Prince Edward County, which decided to basically shut down the school system
Not just one county.
rather than desegregate.
Yeah, they passed, not just one state or one school, they passed legislation to withhold public funding from any school that abided by Brown. They shut down public school systems.
Exactly.
Used tax dollars to ensure that whites could continue education at racially exclusive private academies. And of course, black children were left to rot with no viable option.
Absolutely.
This woman has touched on a lot of the recent evidences of the pushback.
Right, but she puts it in that historical context. I mean, the
context of
I mean, we know what the pushback is.
This rage isn't us against the cops. It's these people against any progress that we're trying to make.
I've seen a bit of a cheering section develop behind Darren Wilson, the cop in the Ferguson case, and even our local representative from Long Island, Peter King, suggested that Obama bring the officer to the White House to thank him for his service to the community and apologize for what we put him through. I thought that was particularly offensive coming out of the mouth of a congressman. I really, I mean, he says a lot of things that I disagree with, but that one particularly stung.
I have said this before on our shows, not quite as bluntly. I just posted it on Facebook a few days ago. Peter King is an idiot. Peter King has no sense of what good government is, what good governance is. He's the one who will be racially trying to profile anybody from the Middle East because they're from the Middle East. Right. He's the one who thinks that a policeman who shoots an unarmed teenager deserves a visit to the White House. Is somehow
a hero.
This man is not only an idiot, I think he's mentally sick.
Well,
I mean, I just think that anybody who thinks along those lines has to be something wrong with that mental.
I don't see his logic.
But
I can't.
My question goes to an even deeper sense of problems in this country. Why would anyone continue to re-elect that man to office? What does that say about the people who keep putting him in office?
That's what scares me about now, my question is, are the voters that lazy? Do they just go for the familiar name when they enter the voting booth, or do they really support this, which is doubly scary?
I don't give you the benefit of the doubt anymore is because they like what he does, they like what he says, and that's why they put him back in office.
Okay.
That's my take.
He's being funded. I mean, he gets
reelected.
That's
okay.
He gets the money for the reelection campaigns.
The answer is, if you don't get the money, you don't get there.
As that Democrat recently found out in last week's runoff, I forget what state was that.
Probably Louisiana.
Yeah.
Mary Landrieu.
Yes. Lost it. Cassidy, was it?
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Money definitely spoke
there. Did
there.
not want the president to talk immigration because they quote it was going to mess their elections up. I could have told them before they did that. That's a waste of time.
Okay.
Had he actually taken a stand and said, "Hey, let's do it now," they might have gotten more votes because the Hispanic community might have come out and supported them more.
Okay.
You can't tell either way, but to be craven and not do what's right just because you think it might get you elected, well, guess what?
Yes.
Proof is in the pudding, right?
Yes. I think we have about 2 minutes left. I'll wait for the signal.
We should have at least 2 minutes. That's right. So there was more about the discrepancy because I want to get to Alan Singer's post on Huffington Post about the Garner, Michael Brown, all these lack of indictments in these shootings.
Right.
And his post elicited a lot of exchanges between former student teachers and teachers that he had trained. And the interesting, these are all people who responded, that he respected, and you can see the difference in the people of color's response and the white teacher's response. And it's just amazing because white people actually still see police in their community as people who protect and serve. And African Americans just don't have that vision.
Now, personally, I try to, when I interact with police, I realize that when that cap and badge comes off, that person sitting next to me at the subway, shopping with me at Pathmark, I mean, that's a human being under the cap and behind the badge. So I respect that. But are they being, once they do put that badge and cap on, are they actually conducting themselves in a properly so that they properly interact with the public they must serve? Or do they suddenly realize, I got the power, I can do what I like? That's my problem, as we have about 20 seconds.
So I saw a cartoon. White kid says, "Mom, going out to play." Says, "Okay, put your hat on." Black kid, "Mom, going out to play." "Oh, okay. Make sure you don't say anything. Make sure you don't get any policeman upset with you. Make sure you don't." I mean, that's paraphrasing, but anyway, that's the difference between a white kid and a black kid in America. That's it for Media Watch. We'll catch you the next time.
I'm Bob Anthony.
I'm Eric Tait. And yes, we'll catch you the next time.